You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hello Well with Danielle podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Washington, and I like to travel solo. Yes, I have road experiences where I take women of color trips around the world, and I love group travel. There's some great things about being in that connection and that transformation that happens when you're working together. But I also wrote a book called Travel is My Therapy, and I like to do travel therapy by myself. But there's something different about traveling solo while Black. Like, I do think that there is a different experience that we have as being Black and especially Black women. So I asked one of my fellow Black solo travelers to come on, Tiffany Hurd. If you haven't heard about her, she is amazing. She has a really great YouTube channel called Where the Herd is Tiffany. She also has a blog about that, soon to be a podcast. I'm putting it out there for her right away. And she's wrote this book called The Hues of Africa, Journeying Between the Lines. She's been to over 20 countries, and I just wanted someone else to share her experiences, because I can share my experiences as what it means to travel solo as a Black woman, but I also wanted someone else who has a different perspective to kind of give you guys information about why travel solo, like what to consider as, a Black woman traveling solo or just a Black person traveling solo, especially internationally. What are the cons, safety tips, and what has travel taught her? And so travel has taught me so much to where the point, again, I wrote a book about it. Hey, Tiffany, thank you for joining me on the Hello with Danielle podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing fabulous. I wanted you to be on this show because you are an expert traveler. You go all around. How many countries have you been to? Let's just start with that.
That people always ask that question. I say I never count, but technically, it's probably been over 20 countries. Yeah. Some people be like, "I've been here. I've been." That's just not me. I don't know. Do you count your countries?
Girl, no. I mean, I know people have asked me, so I know it's over this much. But to know that I'm at this number, no, because I'm not like, my goal isn't, let me get to 100. I want to get to where I go, and I'm a repeat traveler. So if I love a place, I have no problems going back year after year after year and not being like, I gotta get that extra stamp that I didn't have. I'm not a stamp collector. It's not my thing.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm like, that. So we can relate to each other on that. I'm not, bro. I'm not. No offense to anybody. Road to 100 countries or anything like that. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I eventually may get there, but it ain't the goal. The goal is to see different places. And so I know that we both do group travels, and we've traveled solo as well. What's your preference? Do you prefer traveling solo, or do you prefer traveling in a group?
So that's a funny question too. I've done it all. There is something special about solo trips though. I must say those have been some of my best trips. And I think it's mainly because of the people that you get a chance to meet. There are people I'm sure that if I'm at a group, I would not be able to meet and hang out with them. I always tell the story about being in Tulum. I was walking down the street and this guy was like, "Hey, Black girl." And I was like, "What you say?" And I went back to him and he was like, "I said, hey, Black girl." And I was like, "Oh, hey." And so I sat there with him and his two friends for like 2 hours eating tacos. And my family had just left like a couple days prior to that. So had they been there was no way that I would have stopped for 2 hours and ate tacos. So they probably been like, "Why are we still here? What are we doing? We don't even know them people." So I say something special about solo trips. But I love them all because I do them all.
But I love the fact that, you were talking about being away from your family. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation because, yeah, we can travel solo and that's a whole different conversation. But traveling solo while Black, I think there's something, as a Black woman, not just Black, but as a Black woman, I feel like there's something different about that. But so why do you even like traveling solo?
I like it just because I'm on my own schedule. Like, I feel like when you're with somebody else, it's like, "Oh, can we eat at 8 o'clock in the morning? Can we go on this excursion? Or what if we want to change up the schedule? Like, what if I want to go a dance tonight when we had to go to a play tonight. Like I just feel like I don't have to ask those questions, and I don't want nobody asking me questions.
Right?
And then if everything is in my head, I don't have to be like I don't have to then explain to you because if anything, I feel like I'm always explaining when I just want to go with the flow. Sometimes I don't feel like I don't feel like talking right now. I just only have to talk to myself. So those are some of the reasons why I'm like, yeah, let's take that solo trip. So
And I totally 100% card can't stamp what everything you said because I do feel, especially when people see you as the travel expert, they're like, "Oh, okay, so where are we going? What are we doing? Oh, but I want to go here." And you may not like, I don't want to go to the museum. I want to go change my plans. For me, traveling solo means I can change the script without having to get a cosigner. I don't need to get anything co-signed. I can, if I want to do something wild and crazy and say, my name is Maya and I'm a flight attendant, I'm just here for the day and let's party. Not saying I've done that yet. I can do that because no
I
one,
have not done that yet, so that's a good idea. Maybe I should have an alter ego while I'm out of the
I
country.
do so. I will admit publicly there are times when I travel solo. I'm like, I feel like being this person for a day. And so I will just be whatever that person is. And like, what would that life look like? And I feel like when you have someone who's with you, sometimes they'll be like, girl, what are you doing? You can't do that, and all these different things. And so I don't know.
Wait,
But what do you feel like?
wait, the question is have you had somebody that you've seen like the next day and like called your other name? Have you ever forgotten your other name or you always
Girl, no,
remember
I'm
it?
good.
Okay.
I'm good. I have not forgotten my other name. I am actually, I have, so I've been playing this game of being someone else since I was a child. I think I should have gone into acting, honestly, because I did like playing characters as children. But no, I haven't forgotten the name. I have wished I didn't see other people the next day. Yes, that I can say I've experienced.
Okay.
So, like, what are some of the cons of traveling solo for you?
I guess some of the cons are sometimes you maybe if you do want to hang out with somebody, they're not always readily available.
Mhm.
Of course, like restaurants and stuff like that. Excuse me. I've taken like books to restaurants and read. I feel like
Yeah.
I like to be doing something while I'm eating. I like to be either watching TV or reading a book or something like that. And then sometimes all of you can do everything solo, but of course sometimes it is easier with somebody else there. For example, just taking a picture. You know, of course, solo travel when you're taking pictures, you can use your iPod or whatever your tripod. I'm sorry, but if somebody's there, you can be like, hey, just take this picture. You have to ask random strangers, or what if there's nobody around? Maybe you forgot your tripod, and okay,
Yeah.
who do I get to take this picture? So I would say stuff like pictures, or just like, hey, you're like, do you remember that? Oh yeah, I was by myself. Or even if you were with somebody else on the group trip, you come back, you can't have those memories and be like, oh girl, do you remember when this happened? So I
Mhm.
feel like those are probably some of the cons. And I guess if you think about money wise, sometimes it's cheaper when there's more people in the group. So those are just a couple cons of traveling solo.
No, I definitely agree with you on those. Like, do you have, so if you, I've done the thing when I'm trying to figure out, okay, so who can I pick? Who looks like they won't steal my phone? Like, what do you look for when you're looking for a random person to take your picture? Because I'm curious, what are your criteria?
Right. It's funny if I see somebody that like is they're taking a picture of their friend and they're posing them on the ground, like I feel comfortable because I feel like you're not gonna run off if you're posing me and other people. I mean, I guess you could, but luckily, fingers crossed, nothing has ever happened to me. Or I just look
Mhm.
to if they're like a younger person, I'm pretty sure they know how to get a good angle or something like that. But of course, if there's nobody else around, I'm just have to trust that they can do it and have them take multiple shots. But see, most people are really good. They'll be like, well, check it, see if you like it. Like that's what they'll say now. And I'll just be like,
Yes.
oh no, it's okay. Just kind of like whatever. But yeah, those are the people that I choose. Yeah. I'm not gonna choose anybody's sketch. I don't even know what the word, I don't even know what sketchy would look like though. But luckily everything has been okay. Because I'll
Yeah,
be
no,
mad
I
if I have
don't
to
know
run
what
down the
sketchy
street and
looks.
another
Yeah, I don't know what sketchy looks like either, but I do kind of like, okay, do they look sketchy? I don't know. Do they look like they could run fast for me if like they took my phone and ran? It's like I always feel like I'm kind of ready. I do the same thing you do. I'm like, oh no, check it, check it. I'm like, it's good. Just thank you. And so thank you. And then it'll be sometimes bad. I'm like, okay, well, that was a shot. But because I don't
Right.
carry a tripod, or even if I do carry a tripod, I'm afraid to use the tripod by someone walking by me and taking the tripod and running in the phone. I feel like I have this visualization someone's going to run and take my phone. So I will
I
trust
mean,
the random stranger.
it could happen. Luckily, it hasn't happened. And I do not bring my tripod all the time. I think I ask more people to take pictures than bringing the tripod.
Same here.
And even if I brought it before, I've actually forgot it in the room, which didn't make it because I'm not used to carrying it with me. So I guess that didn't make a difference either. So I'm just hoping somebody's around, which is why I want to get like a drone or something. I don't know if you have fancy camera equipment, but I
Girl,
feel
no,
like
that's a
that's
lot.
another alternative where you can do it. You're like, no.
I mean, a drone would be
But the
nice.
photos are bomb though.
They are. The photos are bomb, but not every place allows you to do drones. I know that we were in Greece one time, and it was Greece and in Cuba. Cuba, they got held up at the airport for over an hour having to explain what the drone was and how what it works and all these different things. And then they confiscated the drone. So that didn't work. They gave it back to him on his way back, but they confiscated it so you can pick it up on your way back home, which was lucky because it could have been like, we're taking this in kumbaya. So he did get
Right,
it back.
right.
But I don't know. I'm just really of a basic traveler. And I think that's also for me. I'm not the, oh, let me get that Instagram picture person. And if I'm traveling with someone who wants to be like that, I'm like, I just want to be, casual. My cousin always calls me bohemian chic. I want to be in something flowy, chilled. And if I don't feel like doing my hair, it is what it is. I'm on vacation in Maya. Who's going to say something like, Maya might have a bad hair day, but Danielle is okay.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah, but I
think
also
now I'm kind of like you sometimes where I may not feel like being all fancy and stuff like that. I think, but me being a content creator or like a YouTuber now, I feel like I gotta get the footage. If not, what if I come back home and need it for something? It kind of sucks because I feel like my brain is content, content, content. But it is what it is. It's what I'm doing right now. So I gotta get at least a couple good pictures. But the good thing is too, speaking about pictures, just hiring a photographer for an hour or two to get some good
yeah.
pictures, and then you're on your way to do whatever else you need to do.
And I've done that. You can do it through Airbnb, or there's also an app about, hiring a photographer in the local location. So I've done that as well. And that's also been fire because like you, I am a content creator, but I also try to find a way to cut that off. And so, but it's hard
Balancing.
sometimes. Speaking of hard, being a Black woman traveling, like, what do you feel like? What are the differences being Black and being a Black woman traveling, especially internationally? Like, what do you see solo traveling? Like, what are things that come up? What's something crazy that's occurred?
Um, the the good thing about me being a Black woman as a solo traveler, I am often in spaces where people look like me, and that's very intentional. So
Mhm.
whether it's African countries, whether it's Latin countries, but there's still people that look like me. I have, speaking of like Europe, I've only been to Europe once, and that was Spain. And portion of that time was spent volunteering. So I've heard stories of how people react to Black women while they're traveling. And I'm
Mhm.
happy to say that I have not ran into any of those occurrences. So I think it definitely helps by being with people that look like me because it's not so much of the staring or different things like that. So I actually really honestly do not have any like crazy stories of me being a Black woman and anybody being racist towards me or men. I've heard men mistaken, people as prostitutes and different things
Yep,
like that. Like
been
I
there.
have not ran into any of those things. Have you ran into any of that?
Girl, yes. So I used to live in Italy, and I knew there
Okay.
was one. So I lived outside of the city center of Rome, and there was a part that people, were the prostitute things, and so it was like the main street. that's a street you would have to get a cab to get to the city center. So I've had some issues there, but I've also had some issues somewhere else as well. Typically for me, I think because of the way I dressed, I don't get like I'm not wearing something tight and I'm usually wearing something that's just kind of flowy and I want to be earthy. And so I don't necessarily, not saying a prostitute has a look, but I have been mistaken for a prostitute. I've had the situations in Asia where, oh, let me take your picture. No, without asking, they're just taking my picture. And I'm sure that, but that can happen in a group. So I don't feel like that happens a lot. I'm used to people coming up to me, but I don't feel, and I've had racism, but I don't feel like it was any different because I was by myself. So when you said Spain, I'm like, Spain got Taylor Swift in my world. So when I say things got Taylor Swift, I'm like, we are never, ever, ever getting back together. Like, Madrid and I
Well,
are not cool.
speaking of Thailand, but speaking of Thailand, there was an incident, I think in Phuket, but it was something minor because they weren't from Thailand. She was from
Mhm.
China,
That's
and
in
she
China is
came
where I
up
have
to me.
problems.
Okay, yeah. So she was Chinese, and she came up and she put her arm around me and like pointed to the camera, like, let's take a picture. And so like I removed her arm from mine and I was like, no, I'm not taking a picture. And I walked away. Like, I don't know you. I don't mind taking pictures with people. Because for example, speaking of Rosarito, where we were in Tijuana, which is next door to each other, this lady was like, hey, I don't think she spoke English, but her friend did. And so her friend was like, well, she wants to take a picture with y'all because she thinks y'all pretty. I'm looking around, there ain't nobody else but us that was black out there. So that's the reason why she wants to take a picture. But I felt like it was a compliment. I felt like she asked, and I felt like, come on, let's take a picture. Like, I think it's all about how you do stuff. You know what I'm saying? So if the other lady had been like, oh, can we take a picture? I'd have been like, okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's just
Yeah.
like little stuff like that. And I do remember too, I was in Thailand, the kids staring. We were at the oh my God, now I can't think of it, where the statues and stuff are at. They were staring. I was like, is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm plus size? Like, I didn't really know kind of what the staring was because I hadn't really experienced it like the entire time that I was there. So that was like interesting to wonder, why were they staring?
Yeah, I've had the staring. So I've actually stopped traffic traveling solo in southern Italy. So I was in Puglia in a small town called Aberobello. They look like Smurf houses. I love Italy. So I was traveling there and literally people would be in conversations on the street and I would walk by and conversations would stop and their eyes would they're just following me walk. And I'm like, until some guy opted to be some local to be my tour guide. So that kind of helped out. And so that was one of those times where, as a solo person, I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it the shot to embrace a local being a solo. And I don't like nothing ever happened between us. He was just nice, whether he was interested or not. He didn't try anything, but it also helped me not feel as awkward and stared. Like I literally stopped a church service. Like I walked in the church and they stopped. I was like, okie dokie, just back up out of this church service. This is awkward. And I don't know if that would have felt different if I was traveling with someone else, but traveling alone, I was just like, this just didn't, it felt weird a little bit. And so it was something I had
Right,
to deal
that's the
with.
thing about it. I think like, I don't know, and then but then there's a language barrier, and I don't know how well you know the language, but I'm like, I see, I'm a conversational person, and I like learning about other people. So I'm like, if that happens, like, would I be able? And but you were that was like church, so that's different. I'm like, would I be able to like stop and be like, why are you staring at me? Can we have that conversation? You think I'm beautiful? It's because you never seen me before. You never seen somebody like this in person. Like, I just want to ask that question. Like, long as everything is cool and it's not like a bad like looking, then I'm like, okay, that's cool. Because I look at people too if I've never seen them or seen their culture or
Yeah.
different things like that. You know what I'm saying? But I guess being a traveler, we know that we can't just like stare and stop, or like we're gonna try to take glances, but not like full on. But then that comes with culture as well, how people do different things. So
Yeah, definitely. I never thought about asking someone like, "Why are you staring?" or like, "Why are you staring at me?" Like, I do speak Italian well enough, but I never thought to ask anyone, "Why are you staring?" In China, I almost got in my first real fight because like I just got tired of people just taking my picture randomly. So I had the girl like you putting her arm and taking a picture. And I'm like, I'm not a show pony. And I feel like as a I don't see this happening to white people, so I'm really confused. Especially, and it's only in China that this really happens. And so China is another Taylor Swift country that we are never, ever, ever getting back together.
Yeah,
I got stuck there for hours.
and it's and now that you're talking, I remember this other story about I was actually in oh my god, what's on the East Coast, like Catalina Island? What is it? Martha's
Mhm.
Vineyard. Okay, so
Okay.
I was in Martha's Vineyard and I met this. She's actually from Hong Kong, and she was nice. I don't know. We started talking, and then I guess she took my picture when I had fell asleep, right? And she actually
What?
sends me the picture, like she texts me the picture. I'm like, how you gonna sneak a picture and then take it to me, right? Take it of me, right? So I was just like, okay. And I kid you not, like 2 weeks ago, somebody sent me a message on LinkedIn and it was this lady from Hong Kong. She was like, were you in Martha's Vineyard in 2000, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. So it was funny how she like snuck and took the picture years later. She literally found me years later on LinkedIn. So random. And I was like, how did you find me? Because I don't remember your name. And she's like, I looked up your email address. And I was like, really? She's like,
Wow,
yes. I'm
that's
like, so
stalker-ish.
random. I'm like, it's so random, but yeah, that was just funny. Now that we're talking about this, is bringing that conversation up. Super random, but yes, people definitely will do that. And like I said, and my thing is like, if you take my picture, like, long as it's not like I'm not gonna be posted on some website because you're talking about me. Like, I feel like there's a genuine interest because you like something you see, you're just interested about the culture. Like, I'm cool with that. You know what I'm saying? But I guess
Yeah.
that's where that conversation comes in at, which is maybe difficult if there's a language barrier.
No, definitely. And also, like, I know as a solo person, one of the cons sometimes traveling solo is going out at night. I don't know if how you handle that or not, but what do you see? Especially, I still feel, again, as a Black woman, I also think about, okay, I'm traveling alone at night. They're going to think I'm a prostitute because I'm traveling solo by myself. I don't know if that's something you've had, but what are other safety tips or things you've had to kind of shift how you do as a solo traveler?
Well, one of the thing is, I don't drink, and I know most people do. And so I definitely feel like I'm always aware of my surroundings because I'm not drinking. But of course, I guess
That's
that's
helpful.
always, even if I'm drinking water, watch your, simple things like watch your cup or whatever the case is. But for as going out at night, I usually end up meeting somebody on my tour that morning, and we're like, "Hey, let's go hang out tonight." And so that's typically what I do when it's time to go out at nighttime. Because you're right, sometimes it is like, "Oh, do I really want to go out at nighttime?" So I'm typically always with somebody, and that's the other thing about solo trips. I think people are afraid they're not going to meet people, and I'm like, no, I meet so many people that we be hanging out for the next couple days, who's ever in town, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that was the reason why I really enjoyed Tulum when I had went the first time for 2 weeks. There were so many meetups, there were so many solo travels, and there was some. It was like the first for 2 days I'm hanging out with this person, for the next, because people are weaving in and out. And so that's my thing about going out at nighttime. Or if there's like, before we leave, hey, is there anybody going to be in Tulum? I'm in a solo travel group, and they just posted the other day. They were like, we're not going to accept the posts that say, oh, you're going to be here at a certain time because that's a safety issue. And I was like, what? I was like,
What?
first of all, that's not a safety issue. I was
That's
like, if
actually the
anything, there's
opposite.
strength in numbers. Exactly. And I was like, well, you let me say what's safe for me. If I feel the need to post in a solo travel group of what other days, don't tell me that. But that's, I don't have a Facebook group, but what I'm saying is I just thought that was weird. But anyway, I always like, hey, anybody going to be here in this place? And so if they're there too, then that's another way for me to hang out with people as
Mhm.
well. So,
Yeah, no, that's odd that they did that. For me, I like to go clubbing, and so I do this thing where I act like I go to the club because I have had a situation where I almost got sold into Russian like sex slave situation. So, I try to be
oh
a little bit
Lord.
smarter about my clubbing situations. And so now I go and I act like I'm waiting, like I'll have my phone. and I'll act like I'm waiting for someone, like I'm texting someone, I'm looking like, where are they? I'm like, my friends, like, and if someone keeps talking to me or whatever, I'm like, oh yeah, my friend's somewhere else and to the other side, or oh, I'm waiting for them, they're coming, they're on their way, they were running late or something like that. And so it's my way to also just kind of get out. And I, like you, I will meet different people. I feel like when I travel solo, I meet so many people that I never feel like I'm ever alone. Remember my first time to Cuba, I met so many people. I had this like a crew of like, there was like 8 of us, and it was this great trip. And I became friends with all these people. And I feel like I meet so many people traveling solo, but I also feel like I don't have to end what what I love to do traveling just because I am traveling solo.
Right, exactly. No, yeah, that's definitely a good point. But you got to elaborate on your Russian story. You
Yeah,
skipped
well,
over that real quick.
he's like, we'll talk about that offline. I've talked about it on this show before, but
Okay,
I
okay,
can tell you a little bit more about that because it is a hot mess travel solo moment. I remember what was my first trip solo was actually to Italy. I went to go visit friends. This is a different trip. So this is the first time I ever went to Italy ever. And my friends were living in Florence, and then I decided to go to Rome by myself for 2 days. Went out, did a tour, met some people. I don't remember met them on the tour. I must have met them at the bar. It's a vague memory. So I met them at the bar, and they're like, "Hey, come with us as other places." Went out with them to all these other places. I did my first body shot. I was like, "Oh, this is what a body shot's like."
okay.
Okay. And I remember being out so late. It was like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't know where I was. I didn't know how to get back to my hotel. And I didn't and, didn't know this was 2000. No, 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 this is before 2001, so this was probably 2000, year 2000. So, there's no big internet. I mean, there's internet, but there's no, the cell phones with all this other information where you can Google, figure out, and check your map. And so literally trying to get back was a hot mess, but it was one of the most best experiences I've ever had in my experience in my travels.
That's how it
I
usually
love traveling solo.
happens. But it's funny because when you when you ask about solo tips, I'm like, and sometimes I don't know if I'm the best person to ask about that because in terms of like it's funny because I feel like here in LA, first of all, I'm not a big clubber, but let's say if I were going out, some of the stuff that I do abroad, I would not do home. I know that sounds super weird.
No, I do the
But
same
like
thing. I wouldn't do, yeah.
yeah, but I was like, for Ghana, like there was like a group chat that we had, and they were like, I think this is like my last night there. They was like, oh, who's going to? Everybody was going out. Then when it came down to it, I feel like nobody showed up, and I was like, let me just go out. So it was me and a guy that went out. We went to one place, and it was 2 packs. So he was like, oh, you want to go to the next place? And I'm like, sure. Hopped in his car. We rode to the next place. And then when it was time to go, we hung out for a couple hours. And then after that, it was time to go back home. And he was like, yeah, I'll take you home. And so these are things that I probably would not do here. Like, I'm not just about to be like, oh, let me meet you
Good to
somewhere and
know.
roll in their car. And I did it. I did it a couple nights before that as well. At least this guy was in the group chat that we were already in when we were out the other in Kumasi, the same thing. These guys like, y'all gotta ride home. And he's like, no. So me and my 2 friends hopped in the car. They took us to our Airbnb. Everything was fine. Like, but so that's why I say when you ask me about safety tips, I'm like, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask. But I feel safe. Like I've been to Ghana so many times, never had any issues or anything like that. So I feel like definitely trust your intuition. Like I said, again, I feel like if you are drinking, I don't know if that's the safest thing to do. But because I'm just a little bit more aware, I'm like, oh, okay, I feel safe. I don't think anything will happen. And, thank God nothing has happened.
No, I do think that I do trust people more, and I have gotten into random cars that I would never do at home. But I think traveling again solo and traveling as much as we do, I think your intuition is your best travel buddy, especially when you're
Right.
traveling solo. Your intuition will tell you, girl, run. My intuition told me, girl,
Right.
run several times, couple times, just a couple times. Because I haven't been in a lot of danger. I have to admit that. I think I've put myself in situations that I'm like, girl, you knew better. But you're like, but it's a memory.
Right.
Uh, and I love what you talked about earlier. You haven't experienced a lot of racism or certain type of issues because you choose certain destinations. Like, how do you choose the best destinations as a solo traveler for you?
I think it really just depends on like where I want to go at that particular time. I don't really even do like let me get the best deal. It's like no, if I want to go somewhere, then that's probably where I want to go.
Okay.
But again, I think I and it's funny because I don't even know when it began because I was like, dang, I feel like I always talk about black this, black that, black that. Because on the YouTube channel, it's like black in Tulum, or black in Tijuana. I don't know when I became so like black this. But I feel like I choose those destinations. Again, I want to see the touristy stuff, but I want to see those people that look like me, but just differently. So if I'm in Colombia and they look like me, the only barrier we have is a Spanish speaking. I still feel comfortable because they
Hmm.
do look like me. And not to say that I don't feel comfortable in other countries because I'm cool. If I do go to Spain, I'm cool with that as well. But I just want to learn more about my people and where we come from and how we are, how we can look alike but be very different as well. So those things intrigue me more so
Hmm.
than just like I don't feel unsafe or I don't want to go to these places. Like I don't know. I think my culture is awesome, and so if I can see my culture in a different light, even though I'm not from there, I think that is important to me.
And I think that's one thing beautiful about traveling while Black is that there's other people that look like us in other cultures. Like I remember the first time I went to France, or I think I was in Paris by myself, I was coming out the subway system. And I'm like, there's all these Black people. I'm like, yes, it feels like I'm in New York. Someone says something, I'm like, nope, we are in Paris because I don't understand a word they're saying. But I love going to all these different countries, like you talked about Colombia, talking about going to Panama, going to Cuba, going to Africa, and they look like us, but it's there's a difference, and so it's opportunity for me to expand what is our overall diaspora culture, and I think traveling has helped me learn more about us as a people that I don't think I would have got in a book. Well, I know I didn't get in a book because it wasn't in my history class.
Right. And none of our history class, but even when you talk about just even as a plus size woman, traveling to Thailand, they always talk about oh the people are so skinny, right? They're so
Mhm.
small. And even they talk about outfits, like they be like, don't look for no outfits for a plus size woman because you ain't gonna find it, which is partly true because it'd be like one size fit. I'm like, ma'am, that ain't gonna fit me. I don't care how much you say one size fit all. But it was funny when I went to Thailand. They're called the Gypsy people, and they were
Mhm.
plus size like me. So that even though we're talking about Black culture too, there are other cultures that we identify with. But I was so happy to see them. Like, but if I didn't travel, the common misconception is that everybody in Thailand is small, and I'm like, no, that's not true. Everybody is not. They have a whole culture of these Gypsy people that live on the beach that look like me. And I was so happy to see them. But
I
again,
love
if you
that.
don't travel, if you don't book the tour, if you don't book this, you would never know about these things. And that's why I think it's important. And also I think it's important to do stuff for yourself. Like I understand that somebody may have had a bad experience in China or in, Morocco or whatever the case is. I want to see it for myself. You hear that too. Speaking of solo travel Morocco, people be like, oh, I'm a solo woman traveler and I didn't enjoy Morocco. I would never go back. That was not my experience. I didn't get the cat calls. Now, maybe because I was with the tour guide, that was a guy, he was African. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know what it was, but the point is, I can't go off other people's experiences of whether they had a good or a bad time because maybe I won't have like I don't know, but the point is I gotta see for myself. I don't trust. I ain't gonna say I don't trust. I trust it for your experience, but I don't want to make it my experience. I need to make my own experiences.
And I think that's a great point because there's all these amazing Black travel groups that are on Facebook, on Instagram, and like people are saying, go here, don't go here. And I do feel like travel is like art, it's in the eye of the beholder. I can say I would never go back to China, but some people love China. It ain't my thing, but I'm not going to tell people, oh, girl, you should never go. But I think that in these groups, we get into and people are deemed as travel gods and they said here and this is what you need to do and so that we start following these patterns like ants, and that's not the way travel was meant to be in my eyes, not where it's fun. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. That's my motto: experience it for yourself.
Yeah. And you mentioned
I don't look up to people like, oh, people be like, oh, travel goals, relationship goals. Like, I don't look at it like that. So I'm not looking up to people. Always be like, who's your favorite? I can never answer that question. Like, who's your favorite? I'm my favorite traveler. Like,
right.
I don't look up to people because you know what I'm saying. I'm like, we're all on our different paths. You know what I'm saying. And even people be like, oh, you've been a lot of places. I'm like, I know there's people that's been way more places. And I feel like I'm an amateur compared to some people, but this is
Mhm.
my path. Like, it is what it is, so it's
And I
nice
do
to
think
like
that.
look. I look up people's stuff like, oh, they've been here, they've been there, but it's not like my goal to be like them or to be on their travel path or anything like that.
And I think that's important because we get in this, oh, it has to be this, we have to take this. If we're in Bali, we need to take these pictures here. We need to get on the swing. We need to do that because that's what other travelers have done. And I think it's just traveling is a form of expanding your mind. And that's why I like traveling solo even more so because I feel like travel has taught me so much about not just my cultures around me, but about myself. I don't know for you, like what has solo travel taught you?
Somebody asked me this question the other day. I would definitely say confidence is one of those big things,
Mhm.
is because you have to do everything on your own. Like, I can't rely on anybody. Like, I have to put my big girl panties and I got to figure it out. And sometimes I'm like, what the heck is going on? If I've gotten to Colombia and I didn't know the language, my Airbnb, they had canceled the Airbnb. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? Or figuring
Mhm.
out, I'm as much as I travel, I'm still direction challenged. So figuring out my directions, different things like that. So I feel like it is the confidence thing is definitely a big thing. I definitely think just growing and expanding your mind. Like I said, I love reading books, but reading a book compared to actually seeing something in person is, totally different. And again, I just love learning about different cultures. Like, I think speaking of, we haven't talked about a relationship or anything like that, but I'm always attracted to people that are different, like the accents. If you're an accent, I'm just loving you forever.
I hear you.
But
I
it's because
hear
I
you.
just love learning. I just love learning about the culture. Like, what do you do? Do you have a special dance? Do you have a special food that you do? I mean, that you cook? So for me, the biggest thing is learning about other people's cultures.
And I love that you brought up the relationship stuff. So that's another plus reason why I like traveling solo is I don't feel like I meet the type of people as a Black woman on the dating sites here. But when I'm traveling solo, meet people like, oh, I love Black women. I love who you are. I don't even see you as a Black. Well, that's a lie. They probably always see me as a Black woman, but I date more when I'm traveling. So what's your dating situation while traveling? Are you a travel dater?
So I am definitely open to meeting people. Like, if you say, hey, let's go hang out, I'm like, all right, let's go hang out. Like, I'm that type of person. I actually have not. It's funny because I've written blogs and I'm like, use Tinder and stuff like that. I have not actually really used it while abroad. I feel like I meet people organically, or
Mhm.
from, like, like I said, a group chat or like a group or something like that, or if we're walking around. Like, I think mine is more of that type. It's more organic than the apps, but I wouldn't be opposed to taking out the app and be like, hey, you want to have a one? I think they're like some of the best guys, right?
They
And
are.
some are just generally nice. So yeah. And I too do think too, if it's and I don't know what you can tell me what do you think the expectations are? Do you think dating app expectations, if you're traveling, do you think that they automatically assume or are going to pursue the sex side of it, or do you think they're just chilling? Like, I guess that would be I think maybe if I'm meeting more organically, wouldn't be so much pressure to feel like, oh, they think that they're going to get something. I don't know though. I guess it depends on the person. But what do you think?
I think it's a mix. I think it's one of those times when you trust your intuition, and you kind of see. I do feel like if I've met people on an app and if I met people organically, I feel like I've had both situations where someone kind of thought this was going to be going to like a bedroom at one point in time. I've had people on a meetup app who thought otherwise, and so I think it just varies. One thing I've tried to do as a solo traveler, even if I am dating, I never had them meet me wherever I'm living. That's for dang sure. That's the one thing I am cautious about. So we'll meet somewhere out in a public spot, but I will never, unless I'm at a certain point where I'm open to bringing someone back. But usually the answer is no. You ain't coming back to my spot.
Right now, so I was like in Colombia. We met a guy on the beach, but it wasn't anything. I think he actually like my friend, but he did come to the house to pick us up because I was thinking about the beach was so close to us in Cuba. So we
Yeah.
were like, hey, yeah, we'll be ready at 8:30. This is the spot. So he came, no problems.
In a group
The
situation,
guy
totally different.
yeah, but I've been solo too, and the guy dropped me back off at the hotel. But there's security and stuff like that, so I guess I felt
Yeah.
a little bit safer. But yeah, I do think as a rule of thumb, yeah, it's great not to let people because you always. I don't feel like I've ever been in a taken situation, but that movie's real. Like people do get taken, you know what I'm saying? So I do think you definitely should be cautious, like you said, meeting at a place. But even like I went out with somebody. I was in this was in Spain actually. I think this was like the last night as well. It's always those last nights where it's almost time to leave. But
Mhm.
we went out to some place. But I think I text my mom like, "Hey, mom, I'm going out with this person," and then I think I let the front staff know. That's another good way. Speaking of safety tips, let somebody know like, "Hey, if I'm
Yeah.
not out by midnight, put the PBA out for me," or something like that. Just telling somebody where you're at, so at least they know your locations.
No, definitely. I know you have a lot of things coming up, and I wanted you to kind of give people an opportunity to figure out how can they work with you and tell them about this amazing book that you wrote recently. Like, how can they know more about you and follow you?
Okay. So really quickly, I'm author of a book right here. Some of y'all will maybe see this. If not, we'll tell you the title. It's called Hues of Africa: Journey Between the Lines, and it is a coloring activity book. And it's all about Africa. So you have coloring on one side, activities on the other side. You're learning about hair, language, music, and then it's going into the separate countries. And so excitingly, we are over 500 copies. So super excited about that. And you can get that anywhere: Amazon, Target, Walmart. And if you're in California, at local bookstores in Southern California. So that's the author side of me. Danielle mentioned we do group trips. So we're doing a day trip to Rosarito, Mexico. That's in April. So let me know if you're interested in something like that. Some people are scared to go to like Tijuana, different things like that. We don't have to be scared. We're doing this as a group. We'll go over, we'll cross, we'll do different things like that. We'll just have a really good time. So those are things that are coming up for me. And then look out for our second book that'll be coming up soon. So yeah, super excited about
I
that as
love
well.
that.
You can follow me on all social media channels at Sweet Tiffies on Instagram, Twitter, I guess Pinterest. We're on YouTube. Where in the Herd is Tiffany. That's where we're mainly at right now. All of the trips that I have been going on are all on the YouTube channel. I think we have Mexico, Ghana, Tulum, Rosarito, and wherever else I've been is on the channel up there right now. So go check it out. And
So we'll make
that
sure
name
to
is
have
Where in the
links.
Herd is Tiffany.
And I'll make sure to
Yes.
have links in the show notes as well. So at the end of every show, I always like to ask people a couple of different questions, quick fire questions. So whatever comes to mind, go with it. So my first question for you is your favorite place to travel solo.
Favorite place to travel solo. Because that was the most recent, I had such a good time. I'm gonna say Tulum. Tulum was awesome. At the time, I guess they were having a lot of those meetups. So that was, and then it was like that was the first trip like during pandemic too. So I think maybe just being in the house and then being able to get out and have fun. I would say
Yeah.
Tulum is a great place. It's small enough to be walkable to meet people. I would go up to them and be like, "Hey, are you a part of this group?" If they were Black, I was walking up to them. And that proves to work out well. So I would say right now, Tulum would be on my high list of great solo trips.
Okay. Aisle or window?
Oh, definitely window. I'm a sleeper. Like I be ready to sleep like as soon as that plane take off. So I need somewhere to lay my head, and I want to look out the window when we landing or coming. I like to take photos from the window seat.
What is always in your travel bag?
Ooh, what is always in my travel bag? Are we talking phone, toiletries? What we talking?
Whatever's in
Anything?
your travel bag.
Yeah,
Anything.
I'm just gonna say my phone because I don't carry like bulky cameras or anything like that. So my phone is always in my travel bag.
And what does living hella well look like to you or mean?
That is such a Oakland hella. That's such a Oakland word.
Bay Area for the
That was like
record.
that was like back in college. Hella this, hella that. My motto is living my best life one country at a time. So that is what hella well means.
I love that. So where are you going next?
I do not know where I'm going to go next, but I would like to be going to Tanzania. That would be
Ooh.
my ultimate destination this year.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to Seychelles and the pandemic happened. Girl, I had a ticket for like $300. I'm like, I lost the trip
For
of my life.
300?
It was one of
Well,
those
hopefully
travel deals.
hopefully we can reschedule. Yeah, I feel like Seychelles is one of those. I guess if you're looking for relaxation, and I've never been to Seychelles, but this is what I hear about Seychelles. It's very relaxing. Like I don't
Mhm.
if you're trying to do a whole bunch of adventure, I don't know if you're gonna get it there, but if you just want beautiful and just to like relax, I think that's a great place for Seychelles.
Travel goals as a solo person. Thank you so much for being here, Tiffany. Thank you all for listening to us today. And we catch you guys on the next Hello with Danielle podcast. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.